Hello, 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 and welcome back to Where in the World, where we have real conversations with young professionals about life and career, all while attempting to guess where in the world they are. I am your host, Clary Johnson, and I am here today with a cup of tea. That is because it is very cold here in Chicago, and I'm feeling a bit under the weather, but I am giving myself some grace today, and I hope that you will also give me the same. When I launched Where in the World, I wanted to create a conversation around career. When you're on LinkedIn, it's really easy to see someone's headshot, their title, their follower count, and think, well, they've cracked the code, they've got it all together. One of the things I love most about LinkedIn is the experiences thread, where you can go back in time and you can see where people have been in their journey and what led them to their current roles. Well, I have about 18 different experiences on my profile, but that number doesn't tell the full story, not even a little bit. Each of those 18 experiences was a moment in life when I learned something new, gained a new skill, made a new connection, or started a new venture. These moments intertwine to create the threads of our careers. And so, if you're watching, I'm curious to know how many experiences are listed on your profile. Go ahead and drop that in the chat. Tonight is a special show, and I am thrilled to be here with you today. So much has changed since our last episode in June. I moved out of my mom's place, I signed a new lease, I relaunched my business. But those of you who know me best also know that I was in a perpetual state of confusion before all of this. My mind was a jumbled up mess with questions about what to do with my business, my relationships, finances, living situations, blah, 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 blah. I could write a book about everything I wanted to change in my life. But as I sit here today, connecting with you, it occurs to me that those worries didn't really serve me. In fact, they didn't really help me to move forward at all. Most of what I was concerned about turned out to be absolutely nothing. It was only when I decided to take true action that I was able to attract new opportunities. And so I want you to consider this for a moment. What if failure is not falling down over and over again after you've tried and tried again? What if failure is really just laying there in defeat? Well, how did I trudge through all of this mind crap to really stumble upon this newfound clarity? Well, I have a very special guest here with me today who's going to help us unveil the truth about our dreams and explore the intentional steps that we can take to create our visions, course correct, and get back on track towards the life we want. Please welcome to the stage Troy Sandidge.
Hello, hello.
Woo!
Yes, yes, yes. Let's go. Oh, I gotta get pumped. Gotta get pumped,
Yeah.
Chat town.
Yes. Um, So, Troy, I have been a huge fan of yours since you and I met a little bit more than 2 years ago at a
Yes.
digital marketing conference here in Chicago. And if I can be totally honest, I'm a bit starstruck because your podcast, I Digress, is one of my top 5 podcasts on Spotify Unwrapped. I couldn't be more honored to kick off season 2 with Where in the World with you. And not only are you the founder of Strategy Hackers, where you help emerging brands grow and scale faster, you're also an award winning podcaster, you're an author, a LinkedIn top marketing voice, and you've recently launched a new venture. But
Mm.
before I give it all away, we've got to do some quick housekeeping. So, this is a mini web series game show. My guests love to call it a podcast. The guests, the questions will range from interview like questions to more personal questions about our guests' careers. You'll notice we're both here today with different backgrounds. And in between questions, we'll each have an opportunity to guess where in the world the other person is. The first person to guess correctly wins. Our guests can ask for yes or no clues along the way, or really any kind of clues. And you can help out listeners and viewers by typing in the chat your guesses as well. So now that you know the rules, let's kick off with our most commonly asked interview question. Troy, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Chicago native, born and raised. I'm so sorry about my Chicago Bears. Breaks my heart every year, but it's okay. Growth strategist by trade, former electrical engineer. All about energy. all about purpose. I love to bring joy to other people. Um, and I'm all about strategy, as the strategy hacker conveys. We've already ran down my bio, so I won't go through. We'll go deeper as the time comes. The last thing I would say in this moment, I am living in a place of purpose and intent. It's using my passion for profits. That is the lane I'm choosing to be in, and I believe 2024 will be great for us and those who are listening and watching live and in the replay.
Oh yeah, I'm feeling that 2024 energy already. I have a few offers that I've been working on and
Yeah.
launching, and I'm excited about what this new year has in store for us. Um,
Yes.
but let's take our first guess of the evening. So I see you are somewhere with a Ferris wheel. It looks like a real place, even though at first it looks like to me let me just describe this too, because this will be a podcast at some point. So I want our listeners to be able to get what's going down. So on the right side of Troy, we have a red Ferris wheel with some lights at the center of it. And then on the left side of Troy, there appears to be some buildings with some graphics coming through. It looks like in the background there are some lights on these buildings. So that tells me, oh, and there's also a river that's running underneath, or some body of water. Yes, thank you, Troy. Um, okay, and then on the left side, it looks like a circus tent, possibly. I'm having a hard time kind of seeing that, but I will say my first guess of the evening is going to be Tokyo.
Ooh, that's a good guess. Maybe another life though. That's not the,
Oh,
that is not it. That is not it.
sad me. All right. Well, Troy,
It's a great guess though.
can you give me a clue about this place?
This place is near and dear to my heart. If you followed my journey, you've already started from the beginning of the show, so I already feel like you're gonna know secretly. You know the answer. This was the first place I left my first time out of the country for business.
Oh, this is
Yeah,
out of the country.
yeah.
Oh, so I was close.
You're very close.
Okay. This is not in the United States. Because when I saw the Ferris wheel, I wanted to say Chicago, but then the skyline just doesn't
Oh,
match.
Chicago ain't that
It
fancy with the
doesn't match.
lights.
It's not that fancy. Okay. Awesome. Well, Troy, you have the stage. It is your turn to guess.
Three thought. Well, can I say that? Well, I won't say that. I'll save that nugget from the green room for later. But I think, is this from a movie?
This is from a movie.
Okay. Well, that eliminated a lot of ideas. So, my first guess. I have three, and I want to shoot them off all at the same time. But my first guess right now is a show I have not seen 1 second of,
Okay.
Game of Thrones.
Oh, this is not Game of Thrones,
Okay.
but I would choose a Game of Thrones background. You're not that far off.
Okay.
I mean, you're kind of far off, but
Okay.
it's not Game of Thrones. I'll give you a clue about this place, though. The writer of this film, the idea to him came when he was 16, and the script took 10 years to write. So that's we're talking about chasing visions. This was a
Ooh.
vision that came to this writer at the age of 16. All right,
Oof.
cool.
Okay.
Well, so Troy, you've done so much during your career. You were an engineer at one point, you've risen the corporate ladder, you're a 5-time agency builder, you've worked in several industries from health tech to marketing and politics, and somehow all of that culminated into entrepreneurship. How would you respond to a young professional who says, I have a million different ideas and interests, and I'm not quite sure how to get them to align in a single career?
For starters, that is me. That is still me to this day. I've learned in my career to embrace that because secretly, a lot of folk don't have that ability. They don't have that. I didn't know. I thought everyone thought that way and navigated that way. But that is not the case. So I have learned that is actually a superpower. So embrace it, please, and thank you. I find one of the best things to do is to just mind vomit it all down on a piece of paper over and over and over again. For me, first, I'm all about post-it notes for days, right? It's all over the place. Then from there, it's on a whiteboard. Then I gotta put it on my iPad. Then I gotta put it on here. Then I gotta go through multiple iterations and over and over again. Eventually, you refine it down. But if you don't do that initial just dump and allow yourself when you have those moments of ideation and creativity to just embrace that moment, you're actually training your mind as a skill to output versus, ooh, that's too much. Ooh, that's all over the place. Allow yourself to wander. Some of the best things ever created was when you were in idle thinking and just wandering and just going down the rabbit hole within your mind of the idea and the creation that you have. So I would say embrace that. And then the last thing I would say to add to that, as you're mind dumping and modifying and optimizing, tell other people. And sure, you gotta sometimes people want to have NDAs and trusted circles. I'm all for that. But you know what? I have found when I'm able to start talking about it, it forces me to expand and get clarity on how would I even articulate what's in my mind to someone else. The better you get at that, the better it becomes real and tangible and something that you can actually bring forth into fruition.
Yeah, I think you make some really great points there. I would say I'm definitely someone who has a million ideas going at the same time. And sometimes it can be tough to sort out my thoughts and to stay on track with a single idea. It's easy for me to get sidetracked and for me to get distracted, not by external things, but by my own brain and my own mind. And so when you were talking about really purging and getting the ideas out and getting them out, one thing that really helps me is actually journaling. So I love the art of writing and really being able to kind of physically manifest the idea on a sheet of paper and be able to see it in front of you. It has a totally different feeling to it. And so, this idea about using sticky notes and post its and journaling and writing out your ideas, it gets that idea out of your brain and into the physical realm, into the physical universe where you can manifest it. Um, and it helps to create that clarity so that you can then refocus on, well, now I have this idea or this vision or this goal in front of me. Now I can start thinking about the next steps of how do I actually achieve it. um, and then you also talked about giving yourself space to really sit with the idea and be with the idea. And one of my favorite things to do is actually to walk outside. So if I feel stuck and I'm trying to solve a problem, I like to take walks outside. I find that being able to be in a space that is abundantly free and abundantly clear, and to not necessarily focus on the problem, but to walk with the intention of a solution coming to me, create space where those ideas can actually start to flow in. And so, this idea of actually giving yourself permission to sit with the idea and allow the natural course of things to create a path for you, I think is really, really great. Great recommendation and great advice. And so, you said some really great things there. Thanks for sharing, Troy.
Oh, thank you. The last thing I'd add to that really quick and to your point, many times your subconscious is doing work.
True.
When you are activating movement, where you're separating yourself from what you're trying to solve, your subconscious is sitting there trying to process some things. And so give yourself that space. I totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, all right, cool. So I want to know where you are subconsciously. And so, okay, so we're not in the United States. We are not in Tokyo. Um, hmm. And this is the first place you said that you visited as a speaker when outside of the country as a speaker. This is the first
Just
place you.
period. First
Oh,
place ever,
oh, this is
ever
cool.
outside
Did
the
you take
country.
this picture, Troy?
No. I took
Okay.
one very similar, but I needed a 4K high quality picture. Back then, the quality phones weren't as good back then.
As we real fancy. Okay. Well, so I like to triage this. And the way that I do
Okay.
that is I try to figure out where on the planet you actually are. And there are seven continents. We've already ruled out one. Um, are you in Asia?
Yes.
You are in Asia. Are you in Japan?
No. If I knew I could do this, I'm gonna do like 5 questions now. I'm
All right. Okay. So we're not in Asia. We're not in. Give me another clue about this place.
This place is commonly misconstrued as the creator of something that it is not, but everyone claims that it is. It's a common thing that Americans eat.
I was going to say it sounds like a food item. Okay.
Some would argue it's not really food.
Oh.
I would argue it's not really food. It's more of like a dessert that I don't consider
Oh.
dessert, but it's a dessert. So
Oh. Oh, okay.
yeah.
So there's a dessert that may not actually be a dessert that is commonly mis um associated with this place. Cool. That
Mhm.
helps. That helps a lot. All right, Troy, it's your turn.
Hmm. Is this from a movie franchise?
Meaning there's more than one version of this movie?
No, there's multiple within that version because that could suggest a remake. Is this from a franchise where there's multiple movies within it in sequence?
No, there are not.
Ooh,
There is only one
okay.
of these
Well, that
movies.
eliminated half of my thoughts.
Oh, I choose to chose a good background.
Man. Okay. Okay. Hmm. As she sips from her tea with just the grin of satisfaction in all the world for those who can't physically see.
Yes.
Hmm.
Would you like to guess where I am?
This is wrong, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. Is it from the movie 300?
This is not. This is not.
Okay.
I will give you a clue about this place.
Okay.
Despite the many effects that are in this movie, it barely uses any CGI.
That's helpful. Well, now that forces me to think a little bit more because, of course, I say 300, which everything was CGI for the whole movie. Man, okay.
There are a lot of special effects in this movie.
Well, there's a lot of special effects, but not much CGI.
Correct.
And it's not a movie franchise.
This is not a movie franchise.
Okay.
All right,
Hmm.
cool.
All
Nice.
right.
Oh, we have a show, friends. Awesome. Okay, well, Troy, before the show, when we were preparing, you said, I am naturally a big dreamer. I've always been able to see far into the clouds. You also said it doesn't matter what happens in my life, I am going to chase the vision. You compared your brain to Luffy for One Piece. Just had to throw that out there. So, my question for you is when chasing a vision that feels really, really big, what steps can we take to make that vision tangible? And then how do we go about actually achieving that vision?
I think the first thing to do when you're trying to make a vision real is to sit in that vision long enough for you to believe it to be possible. Because no matter who else you tell, no matter what other technology you integrate with it, all the things that come with it, if you yourself don't believe that vision can now become reality, it will not. Because you will come against a multitude of no's and objections and challenges and what ifs and delays and all these things in your way. And if you don't have enough fuel internally to believe it to be so true, I believe this jacket is pink and there's nothing you can do to convince me otherwise type of energy,
I might say it's purple.
Arguably, we're not going to go with the gold versus blue dress. The right lighting, it could be purple. If we're dealing with color issues, it could be purple. But as far as how my eyes work, so I think that's the part. That's the first thing. And I think the second thing, and this is the thing that I think a lot of people fear when they have the vision. I have a multitude of them, and I've said it earlier, so I'm going to repeat it again. Is then speaking it. And I mean, over time, you have a small summary. Then you do the whole, I'm just going to, hey, sit with me for an hour. I'm going to just talk your ear off about this thing. Then you're consolidating it down into summarize in a sentence and learning how to expand or retract what this means, what this looks like, what this feels like. We have to touch all the senses possible as we're articulating this vision. Then from there, you have to put it in some type of structure that's going to allow you to start building it, identifying what you can or cannot do, who can help you, what type of help do you need, where do you go, all the common questions that you need to kind of know halfway through. And then holding yourself accountable and set a timeline. Now, the thing about the timeline, it's not meant to stress you out that if life happens or something goes down that you can't expand it. It's just meant to cause you to sprint in micro segments to see, can I make progress? Because I find when you start making more and more progress, anyone's been an entrepreneur and you get that first check, that first thing hits your account, it don't matter what it was. It doesn't matter. That means you
That's true.
made money from something you created out of nothing.
Mm.
Doesn't matter. That progress, that hit a dopamine is so strong. Let me go get another one. Let me go get another one. I'm eating good today in this buffet. It's the same thing with taking that vision. It's just doing enough sprints to start seeing progress. And you'll blink and find out you're actually motivated to do more than what maybe you thought you could at the earlier stages.
Mm-hmm. And so, what I hear you say is take this big idea and give yourself permission to make progress in incremental steps and incremental stages. I think something that I struggle with is I have a big idea and I want to get it all done and I want it to be all perfect at the first go. And what I found is that that's not actually the case. And let's actually just take this show, for example. So,
Mhm.
when I came up with the idea for this show, um, when I first started building it, I was like, I need this to be perfect. And it took a really long time for me to get it off the ground. And then I finally decided, you know what? Let's just do one episode. So we did one episode. I was like, oh, that felt actually really good. And I was like, okay, let's do another episode. And I reached out to someone else and they said yes. And they came on the show. And then that felt really good. And over time, I was able to continue to get those wins with people who wanted to be a part of what I was creating. And now we're in season 2. And whereas last season, every week I was reaching out to someone new, this season, I already have interviews lined up for the next 3 months. So
Right.
it does really make a difference once you're giving yourself permission to just make those incremental steps and understanding and knowing like, listen, it may not be perfect right away. It may not be exactly what you envisioned it to be, um, but just take it one step at a time, one episode at a time, and over time, you're going to find that that vision is going to come alive, and it's going to look even better than what you probably even imagined it could be. And giving, and also one thing that I found very true for me in my creativity is that I needed to like create detach myself and my identity from what it was that I was creating. So I needed to make a distinction about this is what I'm creating and it and I am the steward of this creation. I'm just here to nurture it and help it grow. And it's going to take on a form and a life of its own without me even impressing my idea of what it should be. Right. Now, I am there to give it structure and I am there to nurture it and I am there to pour into it. But ultimately, that idea is going to grow from a seed into a beautiful tree or flower or butterfly, right? It's going to become what it's going to become. And by detaching my identity and my self worth and my feelings of value from the thing that I'm creating, I'm actually allowing it to evolve, right? And allowing it to be imperfect. Because as long as I'm attached to this idea of like, this thing is a reflection of who I am, right? Then I am not allowing it to be imperfect, which means that I'm not giving it the space that it needs to actually grow. And so I think for me, that's one of the biggest tips that I have in this space is, and I think I'm giving myself advice in this moment, but like really detaching my own self worth and my own identity from what it is that I'm creating and the vision and the goal. Um, and giving myself permission to kind of go through that process and see it through from start to finish.
I want to take a moment to hit a pause and give you your flowers because you just dropping gems, and we
Ding,
gotta
ding,
we gotta
ding.
hit the freeze frame, sit with it. Y'all got me on like SpongeBob, just sitting here, just me, just sitting with it. I mean, what you said is real, and it's so true. And I think with anything that we create, when we apply to our mental health and everything else, we can get so obsessive as a person who is neurodivergent. As we know, people of person of color navigate a lot of different challenges and sub challenges. I grew up um, seeing and experiencing the only way I had any value was when I achieved something, because that's when people noticed me. That's
Hmm.
when people acknowledged me. So I grew up thinking, oh, the only way I can get love, or the only way I can get attention, or someone to acknowledge me or be my friend, I have to do that, channel into being a people pleaser. That's channel into me being self-sacrificing as a martyr to just put everyone above myself, chasing that relation. And then the same thing with your business or your vision or what you have, it could be like that. And if you don't know how to separate, unwind, and be practical with your approach, it won't become what it needs to be or what it could be, because you put all this additional pressure on it from the beginning. Everything to become a better runner, it literally at the end of the day is one step on top of another. Sure, there's a million other things you have to do to be a really good marathoner, but I didn't say all that. Let's start at walking, then crawl and all these different things. And I think when you don't put all that additional pressure, you really allow it to not be consumed by your own internal demons or ego, and
Yes.
you're allowing it to be free. And the last thing I'd say, I think I'll use an example of my podcast. I get so much joy you talking about it, because I promise you, for the first 30 episodes, I was like, this is the worst thing ever. I need
Wow.
to stop. And solo hosted podcast is the hardest thing ever to do. And I look back and I cringe. And I'll never forget, you had listened to an old episode that I did. I completely forgot. And you posted about it. And I was like, no, she didn't. I don't listen to my old episodes
Yeah.
ever. I'm just now getting used to my own voice.
Oh
Okay.
man, I feel that.
I'm like the nuances. I'm like, I talk like that for real. I
You're
say
like,
that
that's
word that
me.
much. I bring that much energy. Stop moving so much, boy. Anyway, I broke the fourth wall. Let me
You
reel it back
digress.
in.
Yes.
I digress. That's the whole point of why it's called I digress. I go back to that episode, not knowing that was the exact episode I needed in my life at that moment, which is very ironic. And I didn't sound terrible. Actually, I was like, I sound pretty good. But I convinced myself for this whole past 2 years, I was terrible. But I still did it anyway because it wasn't about me. The goal was, how dare I withhold something, this vision, to be just for me, if I allow it to blossom and it can be for everybody that it matters to. Just how every hero, every person that had fear, had doubt, had insecurity, if they weren't who they were, if they didn't do what they did, if they didn't speak their stage, write that book, push that podcast, do whatever that inspired you, you may not have become the person you are today, because they chose, I'm going to do it anyway. So do it anyway.
Thank you. Wise, wise words. Um, and so then that brings us to our next guest. And it looks like you have you have someone in the comments who's really rooting for you. So Heather has guessed my background is from the movie Inception. Um, I don't know. What do you think, Troy?
I feel like I'm on like Jeopardy right now. And I should just like use the person's guess. Thank you, Heather. Um, yeah. Oh wait, can I ask a question still about?
Of course, you could ask a question.
Is this from a Leo DiCaprio movie?
Yes.
Shutter Island.
This is not Shutter Island.
Oh, okay,
Although
okay.
although it is very similar. In fact, let me see. I believe the person who yeah. Oh. mm, Hold on, wait. Let me see. Is Shutter Island the same person who wrote?
So Heather might have been right.
She may be right,
I,
but
I, I think I might have to use that. Can I still use it? I guess later.
you can. You
Oh,
can.
it's a null and void. Like I had a one shot chance at this.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm going to give you another clue about this place.
All right, all right.
So, this film was shot in 6 countries.
Okay, that
Cool.
tracks. Okay.
All right. So, it's my turn now. We're not
Mhm.
in
Kansas anymore.
Asia. Wow. This is going to be tough for me.
Well, I never said it wasn't in Asia. I
Oh.
just said it wasn't in Japan.
Oh, did I only guess Japan? I thought I guessed
You
it. Okay. Oh,
technically only
oh, it
guessed
might be in Asia.
Tokyo. Oh,
Okay. So, is this place in Asia?
possibly. And that's actually a real answer to an extent, depending on some trouble and bylaws of how you classify this area.
Oh, I already know.
So,
I know exactly where we are. Do I? Are you in Taiwan?
oh, very getting warmer
Okay. In terms of geography of
to an extent. Yeah. You're
okay,
warmer.
cool. So I'm my next step
We're not
is to
too far off.
pull up a map.
Oh,
Now
we
let's
can use Google and research these things. I've been going off my own willpower. I was playing y'all on extreme level. I could have been playing it on easy street.
So someone hasn't watched the previous episodes of this show.
I have, but mm, mm-mm.
You're like, I just skipped that part. All right, cool. Well, at least that gives us at least one more round. 'Cause this conversation is getting really
I'm
good.
just going to continue play extreme hard mode. At this point, I might as well commit all the way.
You know, take it all the way to the end. So, Troy, sometimes when we're chasing a vision, we can get stuck or feel like we're off course. And then we have the moments of doubt when we think, what am I doing? Is this even worth it? Is it going to work? Who am I kidding? Can you talk about that GPS mindset and some practical steps young professionals can take to course correct when they feel stuck or off track?
I want everyone, if you can, put a palm tree emoji in the chat. Because if you've ever listened to me ever talk on my podcast or speak, I speak in mnemonics and acronyms and all the things. And so this is a fresh new one I haven't done anywhere. And so for me, when you're in that place, I think of a palm tree, which symbolizes resilience and victory. It aligns with, I believe, inner peace and serenity. And for me, a palm tree is all about pause, affirm, listen and move, trust, reset, examine, and execute,
Hmm.
or be like the palm tree. The palm tree gives you that structure to navigate chaos and all the things and allows you to be centered, to be poised and just sit and be strong for a minute. And let's go through the steps. Let's go through our progressions. Let's simplify everything down to its core nucleus and then proceed. That's also why people love to go to areas that have palm trees. They had a you get You lose in the finals, you go somewhere where there's palm trees naturally because you're
Mhm.
getting trying to get away to reset, to recenter yourself. And so I'll just say that again: palm tree is pause, affirm, listen, move, trust, reset, examine, and execute. Mhm.
Did you think of that while you're on the beach? Or
Actually, you would think I would love to take credit for that story, but no, it was not on a beach seeing a palm tree. I was not. It was not because of that at all.
okay. Well, thanks for sharing that. I used to live in California, in Southern California, where there are tons of palm trees, and I never quite really considered the significance of a palm tree. Um, in that way. And so thinking about resting, resetting, and just really centering yourself in that space where you can restore and get back on track is, I think, a really helpful way of orienting your brain around when you're feeling stuck and when you're feeling off track. And it also brings me to my point. I felt stuck in the past, and what I found that is typically the cause of me feeling or being stuck is that there's usually something in the space that I need to learn. There's something that I haven't learned yet. And I need to go through that learning process. And once I go through that learning process, then the answer is revealed to me or a door is open for me that I can walk through. And what that requires it requires a lot of stillness. It requires being okay with being where you are for the moment and saying, okay, I want to move. I want to, whether it's getting a new job or whether it is moving to a new place. I remember I was homesick for a really long time when I lived in California. Um, and I felt like, how do I get back home? And it wasn't until I was still and I was able to be in a space of stillness and actually kind of go through that experience that I needed to go through that that door and that opportunity for me to come home actually became available to me. And I'm so glad that I actually allowed myself to go through that experience and that I didn't run away, because then that actually set me up for that next step, for the next opportunity. And so when I feel stuck, um, I remind myself that there is always a path, that there's always a way. But either there is a door that is shut for a reason that I am unable to walk through because there's something on the other side that maybe is not intended for me or meant for me, or it's not along my path. Or I need to take another direction and I need to go the scenic route, like you said. um, I need to have a GPS mindset. I need to go a scenic route and I need to accept that things are as they are for now and really dig into what is it that I need to learn from this moment that will take me to that next path, that new path, and that will take me to the clearing. So I'll have to sit with this palm tree analogy and really kind of um, sit with it and feel it out. But I think it's a really great example of stillness as well.
I find I wrote it in four because I'm about symmetry. Palm is on one side, trees on the other. And the first part, pause, affirm, listen, and move, are bunched together because you really causes you to be still,
Mhm.
obviously. And I think the next one is to affirm your reality, affirm your truth, affirm you as a human, affirm that you're good. And that whatever you're experiencing externally is not a reflection of your ability, strength, or purpose. We're all going to have those challenges and all those different things. And then the other two things I think is to listen and to move. Listening to what the world is telling you to an extent. Listen to what your heart is telling you to an extent, and really sit with that. And then you got to move. I can't be in paralysis, stuck on what ifs. Well, this person said this idea was terrible. Therefore, my self worth is not going to work. I'm not built for this to bring to fruition. So therefore, I can't. And we can't do like that. We have to take action. We have to move because either movement is going to either validate and affirm this is what you're supposed to do, or it's going to tell you it's not. And when we talked about earlier in the conversation, when we release the outcome, that gives us the ability to go full speed ahead and seeing what this actually can be and not put a limit on it. So it is something to figure out and navigate as entrepreneurs, whether you're been in the game for a long time or you're new to the platform, you're new to the playing field. We all have that eagerness to just we want it now. We want that Amazon Prime same day shipping magic poof, type of reality. And that's not true. That's not real. Especially when we're choosing to do one of the hardest things, and also one of the most fulfilling things is to be in some retrospect as an entrepreneur or entrepreneurial spirit, I will say as well, because I don't want to glamorize that. You can't have that same dopamine of joy as an entrepreneurial spirit with what you're doing, if you're doing a 9 to 5 or other type of career path.
Yeah, and that's fair. And a lot of our listeners are young professionals who
Yeah,
might still be in college and still trying
right.
to figure out what that next step is going to be. But again, I mean, even having an entrepreneurial spirit is something that helps you when you get into the workplace because
Yes.
you're going to have responsibilities and you're not always going to know what the path is. There's going to be some ambiguity. You're not always going to have direction. And so being able to recenter yourself. So you said pause, affirm, listen, and act
Pause, affirm, listen, move.
and move. Um, those skills are also really helpful for you when you're in the workplace.
Well,
So, um, as you sit here in your flamingo jacket, I am wondering what is behind you. So we are in Asia, could possibly in Asia. Taiwan is closer, but it's not quite. So Thailand is my next guess.
no.
Dang
No.
it. Okay, well, give me another clue about this place.
Um, this place is very Americanized to an extent. I would say that. I think if you were to enter into this bigger country, you typically may use this area as a way to do it. Coming from Chicago specifically,
Okay.
uh, um, I guess I'd also would say um, it is home of the place of the largest sitting bronze Buddha in the world. Specifically,
Oh,
I would know. I did the long hike and walk to see it, and sit with monks, and all the things. So
that's really cool. You sat with monks. Tell us more about that.
that was a whole experience. Yes. Um, I will say, for clarity, I was probably the only brother in that area that day, so that was fun. If you know, you know. And so when we came up there, um, I'll never forget. They were very respectful. I had to wear their kind of robe, and we sat Indian style, and we partaked in a meditation area. Now, there's I forgot how many. They're not churches. They're like little spots that has this real gold inside of it, and you're not able to unless you are honored. You can't go any further than the first one. And so they let you walk through the first one, and they open up the doors, and you can see all these others. I think it's like 60 or 70 of them. And I will never forget that. I've never in my life been in a room built of all gold in my life. And it was very awakening. And I loved being able to explore different cultures like that for the first time.
Yeah, that sounds like an experience. Well, obviously an unforgettable experience, but it sounds like an experience where um, it opens up something inside of you that you maybe didn't know was there before. And
Totally.
definitely a feeling and of being in a space like that where there's so much gold and there's this real respect for the ground that you walk on and for the people that you're with and for the space. So thanks for sharing that moment with us.
Well,
All right. Well, I've guessed where you are, and I don't feel like I'm getting any warmer. But, our friend Heather has given you a clue.
I'm gonna take the lifeline because when you said, I'm like, okay, Leo DiCaprio shot in 6 locations. What movies does Leo DiCaprio do that has been shot in 6 locations? And I'm like, well, Inception feels about right. So I'm gonna go with my guess from my friend Heather over here to save my life on this show. Is that your background?
Yes, I am on the
Oh,
set of Inception. Um, yeah, so Inception is a vision that came to the writer Christopher Nolan when he was 16, and it actually took him 10 years to write this movie. There are lots and lots of graphics in this film, but it barely uses any CGI, which I thought was really, really cool. Um, and yeah, it features some of our favorite people, including Leonardo DiCaprio, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Hans Zimmer created the
so
film's
many good ones.
score. Yeah, so this is a very stacked cast, and it's a movie that is about dreams, and so that's why I chose it.
And very fitting for the conversation.
Yes, it is. All right, so next question. What guidance can you give to young professionals, Troy, who feel like they're not good enough to achieve their dreams?
Why are you putting your pressure on yourself? And who says you can't do it? I want to just talk to my younger self because I felt like that all the time, all of the time. Um, and we can get so comfortable feeling like that we really believe it to be true. In most cases, a lot of times we don't get anywhere is either a lack of access, a lack of community, a lack of understanding, or a lack of time. It's typically one of the 4 reasons we don't get a running start into where we're trying to go. But we can solve for that. You finding the right network, you're listening to the right podcast, you are building a community that already understands, or now you're speaking into existence. Here's what I'm trying to do, and asking, for help. I think we feel like if we get more brownie points if we got to figure it all out ourselves. Or like I just did, I got Heather give me a lifeline and help me come to the conclusion of what we're going with
Heather, I
this.
need your help.
Everyone needs a helpful Heather. Let's go. Come on now.
Heather helps. That is her.
Oh, let's make it a .com. Let's go. That's a new AI tool. Come on. I'm here for it. Heard it here first. You know, growing up, I always found that, you can't expect people who you think made it give you the exact formula, the exact answer you need to just solve anything. That is not how that works. But I do find if you find the right individual groups to give you perspective, and maybe a few hints along the way, you can find your own vision and believe it to be possible to be true. Most times when you're struggling to do the thing, whatever you feel is very hard, like this, I don't know how I'm going to survive. I don't know how I'm going to make this work. It's We're freaking out. We're freaking out of this is very challenging. We're freaking out because we don't know and we don't have some type of parameter of how long we have to endure, how much time, how much money. We might have this idea, but we don't know how we're going to navigate through this. So if you're in a room and it's pitch black, you can't gauge how far you are to get out of it. So we freak out versus being like the palm tree and pause and affirm where I am, my reality, listen and move and figure out who can help me do this. I always find in those moments, it's never a what, it's never a how, it's always a who. Anytime you hit a roadblock, it's a who. Who's either been here before and can almost walk me through it in their sleep of how to navigate it. Who can give me whatever the XYZ, the funds, the support, the backing, the advice, the strategy, whatever to do it, or who can just sit there with me so I'm not alone, that I trust, that I can be vulnerable with, who can absorb that and no judgment. Okay, I maybe can't help you in this way, but I'm here. And we really need who's in all those categories to help us navigate.
And that who question I find is uh, very critical. And the reason why is because I think a lot of times when we don't feel like we're good enough, it's because we're comparing ourselves to someone else,
Right.
and we're seeing someone else's progress and we're seeing someone else's journey, and we're asking ourselves, why aren't we already there? And
Yeah.
what is it about me? What am I doing wrong that's keeping me from being where they are? And so then we start to neglect the things about us that are actually working in our favor, that are unique to us. And we try to emulate or mirror what someone else is doing because we think it's going to help us get there faster. And what ends up happening is we get off track and we start feeling lost, and we start feeling having those feelings of um, like we've gotten away from our original intention or our original vision of what we wanted. So I like this idea of taking that idea of like the who, right? So it's not who is doing the thing that I want to do and let me be like them, but it's more so of kind of seeking out the support and the guidance and um, of someone else who can help us come back, like you said, come and take us through that journey with us. Um, and so it's a different way of thinking about the who, but I think it's helpful. And I'm actually going to be, I'm going to take that and I'm going to use that for my own life.
Really quick, I think the who is important because everything is exchanged from someone. You will never everything you get in life is given from somebody else as a vessel to do it. Even your clients, they're literally giving you money to pursue your dream. So, in everything in life, there's a who. There's people, and not everything has to be paid. A lot of humans are good people. There's a lot of people who will willingly be a mentor or a guide, or will just out of the blue start connecting with key people for you for free for no reason other than just being a good person because they've been there. The second thing I will say, and this hits home for me in a lot of cases, when we're comparing ourselves to others. So, really quick, people saw my LinkedIn profile, they Google me now, I have a knowledge pen, all these things I never had before, blah, 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 blah. And they may think, oh, this guy's that. And my nephew got me on this one. He thought, oh, the amount of money that you generate for businesses, that means you're that. I'm like, oh, no. Let me make something clear. For 10 years, I have been in a 700 square foot apartment. That
Wow.
was the same period of time that I wrote my book. Same period of time I hosted Inbound twice. Same period of time that I traveled the world. I spoke on some of the biggest stages I've ever done. I worked with some of the biggest brands. I worked with a brand I can't name during COVID. All these different things that people see my whole career. It's all been a 700 square foot apartment. I had to turn off the fridge and unplug the stove every time I would record my podcast episode because my spot was right next to the kitchen. I had to do all these different nuance of things to just make it work with the intention I want to get out. I want to have my own place. And this is the first time right now that I've actually have an office ever. And
Congratulations.
so we see these perceptions of they've got all this stuff going on. I made it work with what I had. Life derails. If you look me up, I've had all these different things happen in my life. I'm gonna talk about right now. It's not the point of the show, but I've navigated that to eventually, again, the GPS. Eventually, I got out. I had enough to move and do what I need to do. But the interim of all that, people who saw my perception, they think I already did it. I'm way over here. And you find when you really talk to about these who's, That's why a lot of people are so compelled to help because they literally been there or they still are there. And we just all put our best face forward on social media. But when we get deeper into this game, we realize, wow, everyone is pursuing this purpose so vividly and making so many sacrifices, navigating so many things because they just know I have to do this. I just feel like I have to bring this to fruition. And so it's a great thing to think about and just for people to reflect on and consider. We're acknowledging other people and think about the things. You're not really far off from where you want to be. We're all in this thing trying to figure it out. We're struggling, we're stuck. We don't know what's going to happen next, but we feel called and have this purpose to continue on anyway.
Thank you for the reminder, Troy. Um, One thing I like to say is where my journey starts, someone else is ending, and where someone else is ending, I might be starting. And you're absolutely right. We take a look, and this is kind of what I was saying at the beginning of the show: is you look on LinkedIn and you see this person feels seems like they're really successful and they've got it all figured out. And the reality is that we're really all in this together. And I think the more that we can all be in this together, the less lonely it'll feel on our paths. And um, the there's space for every single person to fulfill their divine creative purpose, and that is just my belief. And the more that we help others help find their purpose and fulfill their purpose, the more that we can fill our own space. And I imagine us, the way that I see it is we're in this vast universe and we're stars, and our responsibility is to fill up as much space as we possibly can, is to expand as far as we possibly can. Um, and in that space, all of us can expand as far as we possibly can, and there will still be more space for more stars. All right, awesome. Well, you've already guessed where I'm at, or Heather helps
Ooh,
guess
Heather.
where I'm at. so, so I am here. I'm really stuck on this. It could be Asia, but not really Asia
I'll
clue.
give you another guess. I mean, a hint.
Okay.
It's a technically a what? A special administrative region.
A special administrative region.
Yes.
What? Okay, I need a clue for your clue.
Okay, because some people will consider this its own separate country or entity,
Okay, its own thing. So I was gonna say
but it's
Australia.
not.
I was gonna say Australia.
No, no, it's not Australia.
Man. I feel like I'm getting colder and
Yeah,
colder.
that was cold. I'm like, you've been warm around this whole time. I'm trying to throw a lifeline here. I thought that would have given it. Oh,
I mean, it's
really
not China.
close.
It's not China. Um, is it China?
Depends on who you ask. That's why I said it's a special administrative region. That's
but it's not Taiwan. Okay. Okay, so I have okay, you know what? I have a couple more. I have a couple more. I have a couple more. Let's see where we are. So
maybe this boat will give it away because it's a very famous boat. I will move my mic. Do a whole thing here.
I'm so bad with this. I have no idea. So it's a boat. It looks like a brown boat with red sails.
It's a very famous boat. I've been on this boat
Oh, that's cool.
during Valentine's Day, and they do a whole light show.
Oh, very nice.
The whole thing.
Okay, well, so we're near the end of this show.
Mhm.
And so I have just a couple more questions for you. Can we do that?
Let's go.
Cool. I have a Japanese framework for career that I follow called Ikigai, and it's the joining of what you're good at with what you can get paid for, with what the world needs. You talked a little bit about this show about where passion meets ability. Can you just talk about how young professionals can identify that point where their passion meets their ability?
Fine. What is something you're obsessed of? Like, what do you watch? What do you consume constantly? What comes easy to you? I feel as a young entrepreneur, if someone just would have told me, because here's the crazy thing, I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't have the words to describe the ability to search to come up an occupation or a craft that I could make money from because I had no idea the words. And so if you find yourself doing certain things, like look up what those words could be or what synonyms are. And eventually you might find transferable skills or clear occupation based off that thing. And then from that, if you really love it, it would become that thing. If someone could have just told me, because I think like faster than a lot of people. Like I'm all over the place. I'm processing so many different things. And I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna just give all these ideas, all these ideas. I didn't know I could get paid for that. I didn't know. Oh, there's a thing called a consultant that can give strategic advice. I said, excuse me. I'm blessed to be both analytical and creative, so I know how to quantify creative for actual results, which is actually hard to do. And so, but early on, I loved to play with Legos. I used to be a poet. I used to write poems all the time. I used to just process things and see how far I can think of multiple things beyond that as a kid. And so that became electrical engineering. Legos, electrical engineering is kind of like a whole thing with engineering world. You just, get your own first Lego set and you just off to the races for some whatever reason. But then I loved creating videos. I loved telling stories. I love learning about people's journeys. And so I went to video production, video media, and then eventually marketing. Did video marketing for a lot of places, and then transitioned to strategy. And you hone your purpose more and more as you progress. And it gets smaller and smaller until you get this very singular niche that is like all you. And everyone's like, yep, that's him, or that's her, or that's them completely. And so it is a process of time, but align it with enough passion that you love it so much and it comes so easy to you. If you can figure out those two pillars, you can go a long way, even if it takes time to come to fruition.
That's amazing. Um, and you talk about the alignment piece of it, which I find is so important. And in my own journey, I found that a lot of times the thing that I ran away from was the exact thing that I was intended to be doing. So for me, it was writing. Um, Writing is takes such a toll for me, and I found out after listening to lots of other writers that they have very similar experiences um, of like moments where you just have writer's block and you just lock yourself in a room for hours trying to just get some words on a paper. And that was a really difficult process for me. And so I ran away from writing for a long time. But there was always this gravitational pull that brought me back to something with content creation, something with some kind of writing. And when I finally embraced it and said, okay, I'm a writer, that's when the doors started opening for me. And so I would say for a lot of people, the thing that what you were saying, the thing that you're passionate about and your ability, it's likely something that's already within your wheelhouse. It's likely something you're already doing, or you're doing some version of it, or it's something that you're creating, or something you feel really drawn to. It's just kind of allowing the time, as you mentioned before, giving yourself the time and the space and the permission to go through that process of really developing that skill.
Right.
Um, okay, cool. Well, I have one final question for you, Troy. But before I ask that question, I gotta know where you are. Are
I
we
Yeah,
in Nepal?
no.
Brown boat with red sails. You gotta help me out, Google. Come on. Brown ship with red sails. It won't tell me where it is. I do see the ship here. All right, Troy, reveal it to us.
What if you Google special administrative region? Or SAR for short, and just see what areas may come up.
Okay. Well, it's a region of China. So I
Uh,
was correct, right? But it's not China. Is it South Korea? I mean, sorry,
I never said it
Indonesia.
wasn't China. All I said was it depends on who you ask.
Who you ask?
And I learned that when I was there.
Oh,
So
interesting. Is it Indonesia? Okay. Okay. Well, let me sit on this. I'm going to ask you one more question. I'll have
okay,
one more guess after the break, after you answer this question. And then if I don't get it right, then I'll have you reveal the answer.
okay.
So the final question, Troy, is a question I ask all of our guests that come on this show. How would you describe success?
Success to me is being able to live in your purpose that covers all of your bills, leads to most of your needs and wants, and you're able to sit in that and be happy. I find many people pursue a lot of money and titles. And trust me, as a young entrepreneur who's been in the game for a minute, I've had the privilege to at least accomplish what I thought was a large amount or what I thought was a big title. But it didn't make me happy. And I actually added more stress into my life.
Hmm.
Not to deter it, because it's a reframing of how you define success. It's not having one type of business or one type of title or an amount of money. It's the encompass of what you're doing with your life as you're building, as you're growing, as you're doing, and are you enjoying life? Are you experiencing life along the way as you're pursuing whatever it is that you're meant to fulfill with your purpose on this earth? And so, kind of once I anchored into that, you'd find you can be very successful, even if you're in a 700 square foot apartment. When you're in networking with the same people, lower titles than you, all these different things than you, or maybe they have more of this, but you're still successful. Even if this is happening. And I find when you can understand that, that frees you and separates you from the visions that you're trying to bring into the world. This is not a qualifier for my success. Me being successful allows me to make this manifest into something real. And it takes a successful person to bring that success out. And so it's like a reverse mental thing to kind of anchor around. And it took me a long time to get there because I chased the titles, I chased the dollar signs, I chased corporate America, I chased working for certain brands. I thought all these other things. Once I get to this pin right here, this mile marker, this milestone, everything is going to change.
Yes.
And then it doesn't. And you're like, the whole thing is rewired. Like, aren't you successful? Even if you got it? It's the worst thing in the world is achieving the thing that you thought and feeling the same way. That is the worst, weirdest moment ever. And then you realize, well, maybe I had it all wrong what success looks like. Success is feeling that enthusiasm, that happiness and peace and joy, regardless of what's happening around you. Now, that could be having a certain amount of money in the bank. That it don't matter what happened, you good. My portfolio is full, and I feel successful, which gives me the peace to just be present and choose not to work on the weekends. Or maybe for you, it's building. Hey, I'm making whatever the case might be. But I'm saying it's really a feeling that centers you, that calms you, that makes you happy and joy. And I find that success.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Troy. Thank you so much for breaking that down for us and really getting to the feeling and the thought. And actually, your words resonate with me really closely because prior to this, I recently moved into my out of my mom's place, but a lot of what I created was in that small
Right.
300-foot room, you know, um, and moving out, I could say it does feel really good to be on my own again. But it is that feeling, right? It is about getting back to um, that feeling of like like you said, of like being able to just feel happy or be content or feel successful despite everything else that's happening around you. I thought you said it best. I don't even think I said it the way you said it, but thank you for sharing that. I'm going to take my final guess. Are you in Hong Kong?
Ding, ding, ding. Yes, sir. Hong Kong. The
I knew it.
that ship is very famous.
So you chose this place because it was. Can tell us a little bit more about this place, why you chose it, what your
Yeah.
experience was there.
My first big boy job out of college, I was managing marketing for this global contract manufacturer, and they had a facility in Dongguan, Fingyang, China. So we had to fly from Chicago to Hong Kong. Longest flight of my life. Um, I remember I had to get my passport and my visa, and I remember going through Hong Kong for the first time. And oh my goodness, wow, it just blew my mind. And I tried everything. And also, it's a respect for a culture. When people give you food, you have to eat it. And so it was me, from the south side of Chicago, North Indiana area. We don't we don't do that.
Do that. We're not eating
I'm the
everything.
first time I had sushi. First time I
Wow.
had a lot of things. I can name it all. I remember going on a hike, the seven tailed dragon hike. No one told me it was mountains. And I remember this is a moment. My boss told me I don't need gym shoes because we're doing all business. Well, guess who's the only one who didn't have gym shoes hiking up the seven tailed dragon?
Troy
I had
said,
dress shoes on. They were worn by the time I finished. And not yet, despite that, I was the first one to finish out of the group
wow.
because my pride would not let me otherwise. But I say that was a journey where, and I'll say this in like 10, 20 seconds. I got lost in Hong Kong, I think day 6 or day 7. We had a routine we always went through and everything else. And we would go to Ding and Feng Ying and we come to Hong Kong on the weekends while I was there. And I got separated because the train station shut down for that day, and that was our direct line back to the hotel. And so I was on the opposite island. Again, I don't speak Mandarin at all. And typically at night, all the people, there's not that many people there. So imagine navigating an area you can't understand the language. My phone is almost dead, and I'm trying to get a taxi to get me across the bridge to the island, and the taxis have switched. And I learned so much about myself in what felt like forever, which was only probably a 3-hour total experience of how I would navigate unknown with immense variables to get me to this destination. And I apply that now to entrepreneurship. I may not understand all the lingo of what I'm trying to do, where I'm trying to go. I can't speak the same language other people. I don't know how to navigate this. I'm stressed. I'm unknown. I'm running out of juice. I got to get money. I got to get back home. I got to get to that destination. And if you stay calm and start navigating, eventually people are going to see you and like, do you need some help? People eventually go, how do I get there? How do I navigate? And you stay calm and you keep saying, I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there and not succumb to the fear, not succumb to the pressure, not succumb to the unknown. I don't know. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I shouldn't be here. And you might be right on the cusps of everything you ever wanted on the other side of that bridge. And all I got to do is get across the bridge. So anyway, Hong Kong was a big transformation moment of my life. It was my first place out of the country. And since then, I love traveling ever since.
Well, thank you. That was a profound story. And I think we can all learn from that of what it's like to get lost and find your way back and find your way back on track, even when you don't, even when the road isn't clear or the path isn't clear. And I think you've illustrated that so well for us today in our conversation. I really appreciate you coming on the show and taking the time. Um, would you tell our listeners about what projects you have coming up and where can they find you?
Well, I am continuing my journey of my podcast. I have what 4 or 5 more episodes in queue to get to the coveted 100 episodes. So, that's I digress. FM, one of my biggest fans. I have to be on her show because she's the biggest fan of my show. Like I'm all geeking out right now. So new episodes coming on that front, and I have a surprise for everyone eventually, but I won't say. But actually, I'll say it here exclusively. There will be a surprise after my 100th episode
Okay.
of I digress. So anyway, I leave
All
that
right.
alone. Outside of that, I'm keynoting at an event. I've never done this before. I've never experienced it before. I'm doing 3 talks on the same day: opening, closing, and a luncheon on the same day. I was like, oh my goodness, wait, what did I agree to do this? So that's something in queue
When
for
am I
Marquee
gonna see
Tech. All right, Market Tech Conference. And then last thing, I started a new venture with my great dear friend and bestie, Christina K, called Season 3, S3M, Season 3. Well, it was just Season 3 meetup, but Season 3. And it's really taking an emphasis of diversity led growth. We want to bring more inclusion and equity, really taking a DIBA integration into marketing, into communication, into events. How do you market? We're missing out on so much market share and profitable because you're alienating audiences that have buying power, but you're not speaking to them. They're not being represented or anything of the sort. And how you conduct your events. Are they diverse? Are you bringing more women into the mix at the top? Are you having these conversations, all these different things? And so we're integrating diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility with marketing and communications in the agency world, media events, and even helping support to bring in new capital and funds to help support startups and underrepresented minority origin.
and how can they find you?
You can find me at Find Troy, perfect branding since 2014. Uh, Outside of that, growwithtroy.com will give you the link to all the different links of things that I have currently going on and
Okay.
how I can either support you or vice versa.
Well, thank you, Troy. I'm definitely going to find you. And it sounds like you have some incredible projects coming up. Thanks again for gracing us with your presence and for with all of your knowledge. And until then, this has been Where in the World with Young Professionals. All right. Thanks, Troy. See ya.
Bye.